Hi everybody, I wanted to take a little time today and talk you through how to write a book review. So my video here will be in kind of two parts. I'll first talk a little bit about what the book is that you're reading, and then I'll talk a little bit about how to actually go about writing your review. So hopefully it'll be useful for you. So my guess is you've got your book, you're looking at it, and you realize you probably haven't read a kind of book like this before. My guess is you're probably familiar with two different types of books that you read pretty regularly. I bet you read textbooks, and I bet you read books with a story in them. Well, this type of book that you're about to read or you already have read isn't like that at all. It is, I think, a lot more like a research paper than it is either one of those other two kind of books. So what you're going to notice is that it's organized in an introduction, a body, and a conclusion, just like a paper that you would write for one of your classes, except the person who wrote the book has extended out all the different parts of that paper into a really long thing. So the book will start with some sort of introduction. Don't skip the introduction. That's actually, just like in a research paper, that's the most important part. So it's going to have an introduction. It's going to start with maybe some sort of interesting story, some sort of thing to draw you in, hopefully. Then it's going to give you a little bit of background. And then it's going to present a thesis statement, an argument of some kind, something that this author is trying to convince you of, or is trying to convince other scholars of. It should be something totally new, something that nobody has really researched before. That's the whole reason why these books exist. So while you're reading that introduction, pay really close attention and be looking for that thesis statement. What is the person trying to convince you of? Then the author will probably present some sort of methodology. How are they actually going about trying to convince you of this thesis statement? Then it'll go into the different chapters, right? And each chapter is kind of like a really long paragraph of a research paper. So you're going to have a little introduction to the chapter, then you're going to have a bunch of information that supports it, then a conclusion, right? And each one of those chapters will go back and try to support the thesis statement that the person came up with in the introduction. And then the book will end with a conclusion, just like you're used to writing all the time, right? So it's going to summarize roughly what was said, and then it'll probably say why this matters, or what is interesting about this, or kind of a so what kind of thing to finish the book. So when you're ready to go read your book, take a little time before you start it and sort of survey some of the key things about a book. A lot of students don't do this, but it's something that can really help you in the long run. So for example, take a little bit of time and read the back cover. If it has a summary on it, read what the scholars have said about it, read the notes that are in there. Turn to the front cover. What's the subtitle? Usually the first chunk of the title is some sort of catchy thing, but the subtitle is what kind of tells you what the book is, what the book is about. It might sound obvious, but a lot of people don't even pay attention to that. Take a look at the table of contents. Look at what each chapter is going to be about. That'll tell you a little bit about what you're about to read. So I think actually writing a good book review maybe even starts before you even read the book. Do a little bit of preview. Then read the introduction, look for that thesis statement. Read through the different chapters, look for how they're using evidence to support their thesis statement. Conclusion, did they actually prove something to you? Okay. So now when you sit down to write your book review, I'm going to teach you how I learned how to do it. There are other ways to do it. Professor Khalil might give you some feedback in class too about how he would do it. But this is how I do it, so you can use this if you want. You don't have to. But I recommend it if you're stuck. Okay, so I generally write 5 paragraphs. That's it, 5 paragraphs. The first paragraph, I start with kind of something interesting. Something from the book that caught my attention, that was engaging or unique or thought-provoking or something like that. You want to start with kind of this attention getter. Don't be cheesy with this. This isn't like one of those high school, like the 3 questions. This isn't like, are you surprised? Would you be surprised to hear? No, nothing like you learned in high school, right? So take something from the book and explain in a couple sentences that little thing that was interesting. Then talk about what is this book? What genre is it? Is it a history book? Is it a religious studies book? Is it a current events book? Is it a cultural study of something? Is it some combination of those? What sort of book is it? Give a sentence or two about what book it is. What is the topic of your book? Is it, is it about family over time? Is it a history book about some time period? Is it about, explain what the topic is. Then present their thesis and their methodology. So give a one-sentence explanation of what the person is trying to convince you of. What is their argument? What are they trying to convince you? And then how does the author actually do that? What's the methodology? Is it like a case study? Is it like they're going to throw a lot of data at you and here's like all the different data from different places in the world? Is it like interviews? Is it like the history of a theme over time? Talk a little bit about what kind of book it is, what argument it is, or what arguments there are, or what thesis it has, or what type of methodology. You want to have all that in this paragraph. And then lastly, right before you move into your next paragraph, kind of give the reader an idea of where you're going to go. Was this a good book? Was it successful? Or was it maybe leaving a little bit to be desired? Okay, then second paragraph. This is where I summarize the book. What happened in this book? I and some of your audience, they read book reviews because probably they haven't read the book before and they want to know what's in it. So that's your job in this paragraph to explain what is there. What are the different chapters about? Where does the author go? What's the order that they go through? Convince me, the reader, that you've actually read the book and, explain what's in there. That should be about, the first 2 paragraphs should be about a third to a half of your book review. Those are going to be presenting kind of the summary component of the book review. Then the last 3 paragraphs, paragraph 3, you're going to want to write what's good about the book. What are the strengths? What are the positives? And then in the 4th paragraph, write about the weaknesses of the book. What wasn't good about it? So Professor Khalil gives you a whole bunch of really great questions that you can address in these paragraphs. It's on the Canvas site. It's under Files. In the book review guidelines, there are 8 questions that you can kind of wrestle with in these 2 paragraphs. So what I would do maybe is I would pick 2 or 3 of those questions and I would try to answer them in what's good about the book paragraph. Then I would pick maybe 1 or 2 questions that maybe had a little bit of weaknesses that you noticed. So, for example, some of those questions are like, was the argument strong? Did the person use evidence well? Did the author convince you of what they said they were going to convince you of with their thesis statement? The thing that a lot of students leave off in both of these chapters is they don't explain why. Why do you think that? Why was the argument good? Or why did they not convince you of something? Use evidence from the book. Use examples from the book. Give a quote. If there's a really good quote, put it in there. Give the page number of the quote that explains why something was good or not good. So you want to be referencing the text. You also don't want to be saying things like, I really liked the font of the book, or I really liked the picture they picked on the cover. That's not the point, right? The point of a book, this type of book, is to inform, is to make an argument, is about to present a topic, like a research paper, right? You wouldn't talk about, I wish he would have used a different type of font or something like that. So the most important part in both of those, explain what's good, what's bad, and why. And then the last paragraph, the fifth paragraph, that's going to be your conclusion. So summarize. Did you think the book was good overall? Here's the good things about it. Here's a couple weaknesses that could have been better. And then I personally like to finish a book review. You don't have to end it like this, but you can if you want. Explain who would want to read this book. Is it just for professors? Is it for the general public? Is it for graduate students? Would it be good in like a college classroom or a discussion section or something like that? Or maybe it would be some combination of all of these things together. That's the general process that I take. So introduction, explain what kind of book it is, what's in there, the argument. Then I give a summary, what are the different chapters about, where do they go. Then I say some good things, then I say some bad things, then I summarize it and explain how to actually use the book in the future. So if you have any questions or you need some feedback or anything, feel free to stop by my office hours, send me an email, or get in contact with Professor Khalil as well. Okay, I'll see you around.